2 years ago, we launched a nonprofit organization called Win the Saints. And in a time of prayer, as we were about to have our fundraiser, Jesus laid it on our hearts that we would announce a goal of raising $30,000 in one night at the launch of the ministry. It seemed astronomically impossible, and I had no idea why he would ask us to do that. I was a part of another project a couple years before, a documentary project. We had a banquet, a dinner with about the same number of people and raised like 6,000 something at that. And so it seemed completely impossible. But sometimes living based on faith is scary. And it takes you into a life of risk and trusting Jesus for the impossible. And in one night, we raised over $28,000. And then last year, Jesus decided to have more fun, and he, in a time of prayer, led us to announce our goal at $60,000. And in one night, we raised over $53,000 at that. This year, in a time of prayer, we believe that Jesus has called us to raise $100,000 tonight. Because he enjoys making us live by faith. We will be counting the donations at the end and announcing what we raised, just so that you guys know. Just a couple desires for tonight, just overall broad, our heart for tonight. Our desire is not to motivate you based on guilt, okay? So if you feel guilty and you feel the impulse to try to ease your conscience by donating money out of that guilt, that's not our heart. Our heart is to motivate you out of joy. Because living for the heart of Jesus and defending the poor and oppressed is the best possible way of living. It's the most incredibly, ultimately joyful way of living. We don't want to stir your emotions, just for the sake of getting a donation. I'm a very emotional guy, so my heart emotions will be stirred. I'm going to try to make it through the night. Our heart is just to show you God's heart for justice and bring you along on the journey that he has us on. And it's not at all about your checkbooks, it's about your heart. But we're asking you for money because Jesus says where your treasure is, there your heart is. And so we are asking you to invest because we believe that this is so clearly Jesus' heart. And as you tie your treasure to this, then your heart is also tied to it. But we're also inviting you to participate. Because as we live for the oppressed and the needy, we get to know the heart of God. This crazy verse in Jeremiah 22:16, it says, King Josiah defended the poor and the needy. And then it says, is that not what it means to know me, declares the Lord. So God himself defines knowing him in Scripture as defending those who are poor and needy, those who are oppressed, the marginalized, and the least. And so ultimately, one of our greatest goals tonight is that you will just get to know your Creator as a result. And I would say our primary goal for this entire night is just to bring glory to the name of Jesus. That's our greatest hope, our greatest desire. And there is a weight in this room. I don't know if you feel it, but I promise by the time the night is over, you will feel this weight. And that is the weight of the glory of Jesus. And that is his presence that is in this room tonight. And I promise you that you will not leave this room the same way that you came into it. It is impossible for you to leave unaffected and unchanged as a result of tonight. And I promise that tonight will impact the whole rest of your life. I grew up in the church my whole life, and in high school I went to like 4 church youth groups a week. I just went probably for the girls, but I still paid attention. Then I got to college and went on a search to really find out why I believed what I believed. And I decided to read all the way through the entire Bible. I wanted to authoritatively say that I believe everything in this book. There was one thing that I really noticed as I read through the Bible, and that was probably more than anything, God's heart for the poor. There are like somewhere around 2,100 verses that talk about God's heart for justice and Him calling us to fight for and maintain and defend those who are being exploited and treated unjustly.
Out of sight and out of mind are stories of inhuman kind. It's more convenient to ignore what goes on behind closed doors.
Growing up going to all of these church youth groups, I never really heard that much about major injustice around the world and people who were suffering. And just seeing it in the Bible time and time again and how big of a subject it is to God, I thought, why aren't, as Christians, we really focusing on people who are suffering around the world? So I ended up starting Win the Saints, and we find our mission statement in Psalms 82, verses 3 and 4, where it just talks about how we as Christians are called to defend and rescue and maintain the rights of the weak, poor, and oppressed. Our focus is really on girls who are victims of sexual exploitation and trafficking, and they're being forced into prostitution.
You're the God of justice. You're the Lord of mercy. And as I walk humbly before you, break my heart as yours is, Lord.
Every 2 minutes, a child is trafficked for the purpose of sexual exploitation. To me, it's the greatest form of injustice that there is in the world, where grown men, the strongest in society, are exploiting the weakest and most vulnerable, young girls, and they're taking advantage of them. It's estimated that 1% of victims of human trafficking are rescued, and that means that a whole lot of them are not rescued. And as Christians, let's rally together and really make that number higher. The power and the potential that the church has to really help those who are suffering is just immense, and it's immeasurable. So check out our website, it's winthesaints.com, and if you have any questions or want to get involved, just send us an email.
Christian Church, and also had him on my radio program, which is Encounter Radio. That's KSID, 1320 AM. We've had David on to talk about one of those things in the smart trafficking. So, you guys know each other. My daughter Hannah is in Malawi right now, working on the home, as well as Haley there. Her parents are over there. Why don't you guys stand up? Why don't we recognize them? So, I'm not just here as a spectator or as a donor. I'm very personally involved. One of the loves of my life, my firstborn daughter, is over there on the other side of the world, which is a scary thing. But God is doing miraculous work over there. Wonderful reports on a regular basis about how the Lord is moving, touching lives. And I can tell you story after story after story, but they asked me not to preach tonight. It just has to be. So I'm going to pray, and then I'm going to give a few instructions about getting our food. So let's go to the Lord together. Father, we thank you for this evening. We do thank you for your presence here. Lord, we are truly gathered unto you, unto the name of Jesus. We thank you for the precious promise that where 2 or 3 are gathered unto his name, that you, Lord, are here in our midst. And so tonight, we want you to be honored. We want the name of Jesus to be lifted up. We want to be reminded, Lord, that you said that the Spirit anointed you that you might set the captives free. And we pray, Lord, that tonight we would partner with you to do that very thing, to set the captives free. We thank you for Hannah. We thank you for Haley. over in Malawi right now. We thank you for Emma, who is speaking to us tonight. We thank you for David and the board and all those who have poured into this ministry. We ask tonight that you move us forward, as David said, out of desire to partner with you and to show the world the love of Jesus Christ. We pray all these things in his name and for his glory. And all God's people said,
You leave the house to escape from the mayhem. Hop in the car like you're trying to run. You meet the boy that you think's gonna change it. The satisfaction is done when it's done. So break it down for me now, what's the inside? You break a bone and it's going to bruise. So is it true when you say that you feel fine? Cause I'll be counting my ones and my twos. Cause you don't know what you're living for. And it's driving me crazy. Cause you don't know it's you I adore, and I'm telling you, baby, it's driving me crazy. See you down on the pavement, 'cause you don't know what you're living for, what you're living for, what you're living for, what you're living for, what you're living for.
I would like to tell you a story that has changed my world, and it has the potential to do the same for many others.
Lord, I have a heavy burden. It's all I've seen and know.
The story begins in January of 2009. I, like most at the age of 21, was on the search to discover the purpose that I was made for. Our church decided to embark on a 21-day fast. During that time, it was made very clear to me that I was created to help those who are forced into prostitution and are being sexually exploited. I had absolutely no idea what this would look like or where I would go, but the country of Malawi seemed to keep popping up in my life. So, in March of last year, 3 of us just went to Malawi. On the very first night, we met a woman named Emma Kaliya. Emma is the director of the Malawi Human Rights Resource Center. We asked her if a rehabilitation center that would counsel and vocationally train girls was something that was needed in this country. Her jaw almost hit the table as she explained to us that for the last 14 years of her life, she had been working toward having something exactly like that.
And your word is like a fire, and I cannot let it go.
So next, we needed to find a location. A recent study on gender-based violence pointed us to the small trading center by the name of Mponela. It is located in between 2 tobacco auction floors. So farmers are constantly traveling through Mponela to sell their tobacco, and they have a bunch of money. And that's what makes Mponela internationally known for being a place where grown men will sleep with teenage girls.
Lord, it's all that I can carry. And cannot leave behind. So I think of those before me who lived a faithful life.
So later, with the company of my brother and a couple friends, I went back to Malawi. We began to develop relationships and even got the opportunity to speak with a couple of the girls who were in the situation that we were hoping to one day help. Shortly after that, we were introduced to the senior chief of Mponela. We told him about this dream that we had to build this center, and he said that he would do anything that he could to help us. He gathered together 62 of the most influential people in this city, and together they gifted WtS Saints 3 football fields worth of land. So now, all we have to do is the fundraising. On November 12th, we had the official fundraising launch of WtS Saints. We started with a dessert banquet, and in one night, raised $28,000. We estimate that this center will cost about $125,000 to build, so that's where you come in. Our goal is to have what we need raised by July of this year. This will allow girls to get off of the streets and into a home. Here, their dignity can be restored, and they will be awakened to the value that they have in Jesus.
When the saints go marching in. I wanna be one of them. And when the saints go marching in, I wanna be one of them.
All right. That video was made actually for last year's banquet, so it is a little out of date. There's two kind of main things. Our timeline has been pushed back. When you're working in a developing nation and crazy stuff happens, like the president tries to drive the country back toward monarchy so that he can be the dictator, and the kwacha, the local currency, loses like 48% of its value overnight. And there's lines to get gasoline that take days. Just sometimes a project like this can be delayed. That president actually had a heart attack last March, and March a year and a half ago, and another president stepped in and has been trying to do everything that she can. The second African president, that's a female, which is pretty sweet. And so she's been, doing things to try to get it back. But the time frame's been pushed back a little bit, which we'll talk about in a minute. And also the size of the land, we thought, we just estimated like 3 football fields. We did a land survey and found out it was actually 9 football fields of land instead. So that was pretty cool. Cool, so this is where Malawi is located, in the southeastern part. And I want to start off just by talking about kind of the problem. And so, if you go to the next slide, I'll just tell you, this is where the long way is. The home is right about here, where this H is, just about an hour north of the capital. And then, so the problem, you can go to the next, just this intersection between 3 different things that create an environment of sexual exploitation, and just culture, and then women and men, women being pulled into it, or willingly sometimes going into it, and then men creating a demand for sexual exploitation. And so I just want to hit a couple points under each of these. Just as far as us actually like redeeming the culture, and just a little bit of how and why we do what it is that we do. And so anywhere in the world where the culture of this world is not like the culture of heaven, that's a problem, and healing needs to take place. And one of the most beautiful things about the gospel, among many others, is that whenever it goes into any culture in the world, it exemplifies the most beautiful attributes of that culture. But it also, at the very same time, eradicates all the detrimental aspects of that culture. And so our heart and our goal is not to Americanize another country, it's to bring the culture of the gospel. And it's just kind of tough and crazy when you're entering into a culture in Ponella where tobacco farmers believe that if they have sex with a virgin, they will be able to sell their tobacco, very easily. And so that's just an example of the cultural belief that is in place, one that perpetuates sexual abuse here. So the redemption of culture. And then for women, getting girls out just through counseling and vocational training through this home that we're about to launch. Some of these girls will go back into it. So you can go to the next. The plan, we'll talk a little bit about, go to the next one. Just women coming in through poverty, fear, culture, kind of into this funnel, being trafficked, prostituted, sexually abused, and this demand for men here. That's just kind of what we're going to talk about a little bit. So we can bring girls out of this funnel who are either about to or have already entered into sexual abuse, prostitution, through vocational training, counseling. That's our hope and our goal in this home. The crazy thing is this dude who is kind of like a specialist in psychology of sexual abuse, a guy named Dan Allender, he says that about 94% of girls who have been brought out and go through counseling, things like that, brought out of sexual exploitation, forced prostitution, 94% of them actually will go back into it. There's this crazy thing called the trauma bond, Stockholm syndrome, and they get this crazy bond, just like we all do, to sin. I have a bond to sin. I have a bond to the comfortability of my sinful nature, because to be free is actually a scary thing. So sometimes it's just easier to stay enslaved to our sin. So we realize that there's kind of a double-sided approach to any kind of nonprofit work. And one is this compassion approach, and it's doing this, helping those who are suffering from any kind of injustice, and it's just creating like an immediate relief, meeting the immediate need, so that, let's say someone is dying from a famine, you bring in immediate relief. It's an unsustainable model because it's not empowering, it's just keeping someone alive or getting them out of that immediate suffering. So there's another approach, and it's actually asking, okay, why is this happening? What can be done to actually prevent this? That's called the justice approach. And so we recognize that if we pulled girls out of this funnel, it would still exist and there would still be a demand, and either girls will go back into it, or more girls will just be brought into it to meet this demand. Maybe even trafficked or sold by their family members because there's a lot of money in it. And so we could just be spinning our wheels in the mud and not actually getting anywhere. So we see that the actual true foundational solution to eradicating sexual exploitation in the world is eliminating it as a demand in the hearts of men. And a lot of people, they see men as the problem. We believe that men are actually the solution. Okay, so we hope to mentor and disciple the very men who are doing the sexual abuse, and pursue them, meet them where they are in that, and love them. Because there's something crazy that happened when Jesus died on the cross for us. He pursued us while we were in our sin, and while we were actively rebelling against him, spitting in his face, and had our backs turned on him. The Bible says that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. And for us to receive this grace that he showed us, who are we to say that someone else is not worthy of the grace that we received? And so, there's this quote by this guy, O. Henry. I don't even know if he has a last name. It's pretty sweet. I want a cool name like that. You can call me O. David from now on if you want. He just said, let's see, if we could see the secret and hidden past of even our worst enemies, it would unveil enough pain and suffering that would diffuse even our worst hostilities. And so we see men who are doing sexual abuse, not as the enemy, not as someone who just needs punishment, but someone who actually also needs love, or maybe even more than punishment, needs love. Because maybe they've never received love, and they don't know what it's like. Maybe they are just enslaved as the girls that they are enslaving. So that's that part. As far as going back to the cultural element, kind of this triangular approach, if you want to go to the next slide. Yeah, after that. So our participation in it. Our desire is to do evangelism. So this is kind of that, what we were just talking about. This is the bigger picture of this triangular approach to actually bringing redemption to that culture. And so just meeting the needs of the men, meeting the needs of the women, but also having this broad picture of going into villages, like one by one, and showing the Jesus film and preaching the gospel. And we're partnering with a man who's already just consistently doing this. His name is Newman, which is totally sweet, because I'm a Seinfeld fan. So yeah, I've gone out with him a number of times. We've taken teams to Malawi and just shared the gospel with hundreds and hundreds, 400 or 500 people. I remember there was like 400 people, all but I think I counted 6 that didn't like storm us when they were like, we want prayer, like we want to receive Jesus. And then we just got to pray for them like late into the night. It was incredible to see miraculous things happen. It's outrageous. And so we just believe that bringing the culture of the gospel does what we just talked about. Eradicates, but also, shows all the best attributes and exemplifies them. Our hope, as far as like foster families for these girls, when they're in this home, it's just a 6-month to a year program. It'll be case by case. Some may stay longer, some may be shorter. But our desire is not to have this extended orphanage type of model, because we believe that God instituted the family in the Old Testament along with the institution of the government and the institution of the church for a reason. The family is one of these institutions that he established, that we are meant to grow up under the love and care of a father and mother in a family. And so some of these girls may not have family. I know, like the girl Gladys that I met 2 years ago, who was orphaned at the age of 6 and forced to do prostitution just to feed. She was taken care of until the age of 13, was forced into prostitution because her aunt kicked her out of the house and said she didn't want to have to feed her along with her other children. So she just entered. She told me to my face, if I want to eat in a day, I have to sleep with men. So our hope is that a girl like Gladys would have a family to grow up in. And so we're doing church partnerships and finding families in the local churches around Ponella that would be willing to bring these girls into their home after they graduate from our program, so that they're raised in the church or in that family setting, and we'll have like kind of social worker type of people go and check in on them, make sure they're being treated okay. Because again, the cultural view of a girl who's been sexually abused can sometimes be that they're trash, you know, and they're not really worthy of being treated well. And so even in the church, it's crazy. They may just, I've heard many stories actually of girls just being sexually abused. Because there is like an attempt at a foster program that we got to meet up with in Malawi. It's just not very easy. And I've been told that it is impossible to have this. I'm just so glad that what is impossible with us is possible with God, and so we're going for it. And another part of it is just like family healing. And so we will go into the communities. If the girls don't have a family, we'll just go into the communities where the foster families are and educate them and just show them the heart of Jesus for these girls. And that Jesus, he just pursued those who were, considered sinners and the prostitutes. And he even told the religious people, prostitutes and sinners are entering the kingdom of heaven instead of you guys. And it kind of got him killed, but but yeah, we just believe in a family. If their family is alive, we believe in reconciliation. And how beautifully powerful would it be for a father who sexually abused his child or trafficked her to actually grasp the gospel and apologize to her? Like that's what we call the culture of the kingdom of heaven coming to earth. And so that is also our hope, just in restoring this culture, just the flagrant undertone of sexual abuse that happens in Malawi. So then you can go to the next. Just a couple things as far as how we do that. I want to throw one thing in there. It's just a survey that I heard about. This organization did a countrywide survey across Malawi. I found out it was to thousands of girls, and they interviewed them and asked them, at what age did you have your first sexual encounter? And they said the average age was 12 years old. And then they followed that question up and asked, of that sexual encounter, were you a willing participant? And they said that about 72% of the girls said they were not willing participants in their first sexual encounter. And so that is just the prevalence of sexual abuse that is taking place in this country. So this is kind of, what are we on, the how, what? This is kind of the why, or just our approach, and kind of our participation in redeeming the culture. We will just do it through indigenous leadership, and we just believe in ownership being in the hands of locals. We think that they're way better and more capable of doing ministry to other Africans because they know the language and the culture. So we just believe in giving dignity to them and giving empowerment to them and having it, just ownership being in their hands and not being this American project. I love, one of my favorite quotes is this proverb. It just says, it's not in the Bible, but it's this proverb. It just says, go and live among the people and love them and learn from them. Find out what it is that they have access to and build on that. And it says, of the best leaders, when their task is complete, the people will remark, we've done this ourselves. So that's our hope, not to come in and be this hero and change this and fix this. That's not at all our approach. We're just humble servants. And I tell that to the counselors. I was just there like a month and a half ago. I was interviewing some counselors that we were about to hire, and I was telling them, you guys are our boss. And they're like, like, yeah, sure. Like, I was like, no, we're here to serve you. And they're like, yeah, whatever. Like, that idea is so crazy to them. It's like, no. Like, no, we're your servants. And so it's like, it's awesome. It's a blast. Just a greater ecosystem is partnering and collaboration with local organizations that are already doing stuff. 2.5 years ago, I was there over the summer, and just all I did for like 2 months was just meet with every organization and develop relationships and partnerships. We're partnering with the government, which I know sounds like, oh no, like in America, if you partner with the government, it's like you're, like selling your soul to, like someone other than Jesus. It seems like, and like you can't like talk about Jesus at all, and like it just takes away all of your freedoms to be able to share the gospel. And so in Malawi, the case is different, and it's actually predominantly a Christian nation. They say it's about 79% Christian, and so they're very open and very welcoming. And we're just adding value to the work that's already being done, or at least what is on the agenda of what they hope they could do in Malawi. And so we're just partnering with them, and they're actually paying the salaries of some of the staff that'll be working in the home. So it's beautiful. The ecosystem developing and not just doing something that someone else is doing or working completely separate from what other people are already doing. We just believe in partnership. Emma will address, a little bit of that later. She's actually coming up to speak. I don't know if you knew that or if that's a surprise, but. And then, we're just rooting everything in the best practices as far as we are capable, or even as far as we're not capable, just ideologies of what Jesus and the Spirit are leading us into. I was traveling for like 5 months, I was in Malawi, and I went through a missionary training school in Mozambique and got a chance to do an extended outreach in Cambodia, and did a bunch of research with 3 other organizations that are already running homes. And we just learned from them. All 3 of them, Christian-based, they just openly said, these are the mistakes that we made. Don't do this. Do this instead. These are the things that we've learned. Crazily enough, there was one woman who was a student at the missionary training school that I went to for 3 months, who had done professional consulting in Indonesia and Cambodia to like 4 different trafficking organizations she worked with for years. And she had accumulated all of these documents and pretty much saved us about 2 years of work that most of it we didn't even realize that we needed to do. She was like, here you go, like all of these crazy codes of conduct and training and interviewed, like everything. It was nuts. One of the most encouraging things I heard from her, she just said, after looking through all of the documents of Win the Saints, our core values and our development plan, she said, it seems like one of 2 things are happening. Either Win the Saints has already been working in the field for 20 years, or they just listen to the Spirit of God. Because she was like, I know ministries that have been working in the field for 20 years that don't understand these things. And I wish that they did. And so she's this professional consultant to ministries, and she's been helping us like crazy. Our last one is self-sustaining. We just believe in a program that is self-sustaining, that is not dependent on funds coming from the outside. It may need that initial funds from the beginning, but a year ago, we planted 450 trees, this orchard on the land. And next year, they're like, kind of small, but next year they're gonna supposedly start bearing fruit, and it'll be an income generating thing. We might even have the girls learn like business management and kind of personal finance and sell that in the market, and then a lot of that money will go back toward keeping the home sustainable. We're also hoping to raise chickens, but we don't want to just say like, we should do this. We want people to step up, again, that they would say, yes, of the best leaders when their task is complete, the people will remark, we've done this ourselves. And so we're just asking the Spirit to grow it in someone's heart to be able to do that. But that's a hope that we have, and that's a prayer that we have. There's just 2 kind of other points I wanted to touch on before Emma got up. And that's just last year we announced that we were going to tithe 10% of all the money that came in to Win the Saints. Just saw that as a potentially controversial topic. It's like some people say, I'm giving my money to this ministry, I want it to go to this ministry. But we just believe that we are just a small like snippet of what Jesus is doing in the world to bring his kingdom to earth. And it's very easy to get caught up in our work and lose sight of Jesus. And just lose our perspective and not have a proper perspective. I think that our work is way more important than glorifying Jesus, and we walk away from him in the process. And so our hope is to continue to hold on to the reality and the truth that everything that we have is a gift. And we have been honored by God, and he has entrusted us with these resources, and we are his stewards. And he just commands tithing, I think, so that we can not see that we get to, or we have to give 10%, but that it's a blessing that we get to keep 90%. And so, yeah, we are just putting that back into local ministries and local churches in Malawi, and just friends of mine. Chipi, who has this child development program of 120 kids, he has chickens that he's raising, and they have this thatch roof that water was dripping in and just creating a mess, and so we put a new roof on his chicken coop. That's just a couple of examples. With Newman, we bought him a projector so he didn't have to keep renting a projector over and over again whenever we would go, because he goes weekly into villages and shows the Jesus film. So we did that. Another guy, Collins, works with this awesome ministry, Youth for Christ, and goes into schools, plays the guitar. His guitar broke, and so we fixed the guitar, gave him a case, just like a couple of examples like that. Dude, how the kingdom of God is like one of multiplication. It's not like one of it's abundance, not scarcity, And so we don't have to try to hold on to everything that we get and just beg people to give us. No, it's one of abundance, is the way that the economy of heaven works. So there's that. I just wanted to run by real quick just what the money tonight will be going toward. If we raise $100,000, it will just completely furnish the home and do stuff like electrical and plumbing. You're about to see a video that is like a walkthrough of the home at the state it was about a month ago. It's just about to be completely constructed, the frame of it. And so it'll completely finish and make the home livable. We thought the fence was like 15 grand. That's what it says in your brochures on your tables. But we found out that we were way under, because the land is 9 football fields instead of 3. And so it's going to cost closer to 60 grand just to put a fence around the land that we have to protect our orchard. And so that's part of what the money's going toward. And then we have this crazy idea. Next summer, my friend Dan Paris came and filmed just 2 months ago when we were there in Malawi. And his heart is filmmaking and making documentaries, and he wants to tell the story of When the Saints in a documentary form. And just show the world, God's heart for the least of these through the documentary, and just show it's focused on kind of what our responsibility is and how trafficking is something that's not abstract and out in our hearts, or out in the world, but it's actually in each of our hearts. And just crazy, we can fight trafficking on the front of our hearts. When we do something like find our identity in what the opposite sex thinks about us, and we find our beauty and value and validation in that instead of Jesus, that actually is the beginning, the seeds that grow into a man completely raping a woman and not respecting her and just using her body to get what he wants. And a woman even using her body in prostitution to get money. And so it starts right here in each of our hearts. And Jesus says something crazy, when you look at a woman lustfully, you actually commit adultery. And so he equates this very seemingly minuscule thing that happens in our hearts to actually the most intense and extreme sin that's worthy of, in that day, being dragged in the streets and stoned to death. Whew, okay, so that's what the documentary is about. I want to see that, next summer we're thinking about, we're planning a 2-month tour across 20 states in America to show that and speak and share this. So we're looking at a proposal somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000, and so this money will go to some of this. We're going to do fundraising separate from this, but some of this may have to kind of front some of those costs for that tour. So that's what the $100 grand tonight, if we raise it, will go toward. Okay, so you're going to watch this walkthrough video, and then Emma's going to speak after that. big green thing.
Really?
Yeah. The main door's over there, but this enters into the cafeteria where all the girls will be eating. And then the kitchen is back here on the far side. And there'll be stoves and, refrigerator, everything in here that we need. And back here, so this is one of the rooms that the girls will be staying in. And then there's 2 more rooms back here that will actually be the living quarters for the girls.
Panali isangalo tsiku lomwe madabwera kunoko panali magulupu okwanira 7 amene adzandira project imeneyi. Pana magulupu onsewo ni osangalala ndithu.
And most chiefs usually come here, and when they meet Emma, they are always happy. They dance just because they are happy with what is happening. And we are very proud of Emma, what he has done. That one is a woman. We did not expect it to do what he has done. No. Yeah, sure, we are very happy.
It's their project, and so we want them to do what they think is best, because they understand the culture much better than we do. Then back here is just some showers and a bathroom, for the girls. This is like a conference, it'll be a conference meeting room for staff meetings, and this then goes into reception, and so the main door is this way. This is the director's office.
Is that your office?
I mean, I'm not the director. No, it'll be whoever's in charge. These are the wonderful workers. Zikuyenda.
Ngowe kuite kudzasinta. Idzatenga dairoso ramponera imene idzakhala number 1.
So you feel more proud?
Very, very much proud. Even the chiefs here are
Yeah.
very proud.
Wow.
And we pray for those people who suggested that this structure should be here. We are very happy with that.
Amen.
Sure.
It is just Jesus who has suggested it.
It is Jesus. Our prayers have been answered.
Yeah, and what's wonderful is once the building is built, it will be run by Africans. And so even though some funding is coming from America now, it is just the initial funding, and then the ownership will be in the Africans' hands, and so it's self-sustainable and not dependent on money from just the outside, but it will be the empowerment of Africans. They know how to help other Africans better than we know how to help Africans because they know the culture well and they know the language. Yeah. If we were just trying to do it all, we would not be able to do any ministry, and so our desire is for it to be owned by Africans so that they are not employees of America, but they are just serving Jesus and they are the ones running the home. Also just tell him we are so grateful to have his support as a chief. We look forward to the partnership continuing into the future and being able to see together the way that the project impacts the community for the better. Her name is Emma Kaliya. She's one of my best friends. She is an incredibly amazing woman. And she started the Malawi Human Rights Resource Center like 17 years ago. She's the program manager. And she also sits as chairperson on FemNet. I don't even know like all the titles that she has. She has like 7 more that I'm not gonna list, but I'll just list a couple of them. This crazy intercontinental group. I think it's like 25 nations or something crazy. I don't know. FemNet. She also sits as chairperson of the NGO Coordination Board, like 52 different organizations. She's a chairperson over that. And like 7 other things. And so we just met on the first day that I was ever in Malawi. And she's completely partnered with us in her spare time, which I have no idea like how or where she had any spare time. Completely free of charge for Win the Saints. None of us actually, there's been no like salaries. I don't get paid anything. Emma doesn't get paid anything. This is completely just based on us desire to see this become a reality in the country. And I wanted to first just give you some flowers that we put back here. and just say thank you. I could not dream up in my mind a better person to be able to do ministry side by side with. And if I had to pray to Jesus for like something that I wanted in a ministry partner, I would not have even been able to fathom, even in my imagination, dreaming for someone like you to come alongside of this project. And so I'm incredibly honored to be at your side. Thank you so much.
Hello. I bring the greetings from the people of Malawi to the friends of When the Saints in St. Louis. Greetings to you all. I'm completely overwhelmed. When David was sending this invitation to me, I did not expect to meet 400 people. In Malawi, when you are meeting such people, there's a big event, a political event, or maybe going into the community and talking to people. But for here, I have to meet people in this big room who are committed to supporting When the Saints. I thank you in the name of our Lord. Yes, my name is Emma Kaliya. I know maybe my English would be very difficult for you to understand because we speak the British African English, which is a bit different from the American English. But I hope I will be quite slow to make sure that I'm able to pick what I'm saying. I come from Malawi. I will show you, I think you've seen on the map Malawi, a small country. I've never worked as a civil servant in government. I've always worked as a social worker in the NGOs since my childhood days. I would not want to tell you that I suffered during my childhood days, then I would be lying. I came from a middle-earning family. My mother and my father were able to support me to go to school. My father and my mother, they are still living. My father is 85, my mother is 83. They are still living. I still have a lot of support from them, although my mother now, she had a stroke and she cannot move on her own. But we pray for her and I'm hoping that one day she'll be able to walk again. But when I grew up, I am one of those during my teenage time, but also when I grew up after my high school. When I started working, I've gone through gender-based violence. I want to make this testimony because that can add up very well where my commitment is coming from. Through gender-based violence, intimate partner violence, workplace sexual harassment, and you can name everything I've gone through. This created a passion for me that by the time I was helping out with the Mozambican refugees that came into my country during their 16 years of war, I was able to help the women and children that had gone through violence, whether sexual harassment, whether typical rape and defilement, but also those who are just been traumatized from the home, I was able to help them because now it was from my experience and I was there to support them. And I took off that however help the women and the children that will be suffering from such things. So I'm there, I've been there, I was there, I've been there, I'll be there. And hence, my partnering with WtS is only adding value to the work that I'm doing in Malawi. And hence, I do not need to be paid from WtS because WtS has a passion, WtS has an agenda to change the livelihood of the Malawian girls, but also to change the face and the image of Malawi as a country. I think that's where I will be starting from. I have, yes, a lot of positions, but those positions mean nothing if the women and the children continue suffering under the hands of those who are supposed to protect them. And I think I should be one of those using my position to aid this kind of impunity. And I stand here to make that commitment. I'll be giving you a presentation. I know David has talked a lot, but I thought I should take it from our perspective because we need to support the idea. When David is talking from St. Louis. But I'll be talking from my own perspective where I see these things happening day in and day out. And what are we doing as Malawi? What are we doing as those in authority? For those who in positions of power that are supposed to change things. So you bear with me because I thought this is the only chance I've been given to come all the way, fly 25 hours to come here. And I need to give a perspective of Malawi properly so that when you're getting out of here, you do really understand where we stand as Malawi. I thank you so much. This is our flag. And our flag is saying, thank you, goodbye. And hoping that each one of you will take time to come and see us in Malawi. When you are holiday trip, you should not go to Nairobi. Your holiday trip should be to Malawi so that you can see what you are investing in. And I'm saying thank you, Sikomwamiri means thank you in our language. But down there, you may not see the weights. 2015 is the target for all these things that we are talking about. The UN is targeting 2015. The SADC region has also targeted 2015 that all the problems that we are speaking here should stop by 2015, although it may not be real, but certain things will stop. So we are saying 2015, yes, we must, and the time is now for change. And thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Emma. What if sexual exploitation in the world could actually be eliminated? What if every single case of sexual abuse was no longer happening? Jesus showed me that in my heart, when I believed that that would be impossible, I was actually creating space for sexual exploitation to exist. And he showed me that the kingdom of heaven is not only coming to the earth, but it's actually coming to my heart first. And in the kingdom of heaven, there is absolutely no space for sexual exploitation to exist. And if that is in my heart, that will become a reality in the world. And us, as created beings, exist on earth for a vapor, a very small amount of time in comparison to our existence in heaven. And here on earth, sexual exploitation is a foreign concept compared to our existence in heaven. It won't exist in heaven anymore. It will be like a distant memory, like the shadow of something that was hard to even fathom existing one day. We won't even really remember what it was like. We won't even be able to fathom the pain of it. We'll be so consumed with the incredible glory of Jesus and the complete abolition of all suffering. And so it is the reality. It's just what will happen. It's the existence that we will live in. So why do we not believe it's possible now? Why do we live believing that it will never happen? I want to ask you a tough and personal question. Just this question of, if you knew, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that if you gave up your life and ceased to exist, like this instant, a girl in the world would not be sexually abused, would you do that? Because that's something that you would be willing to do. I know it's an impossibility. Okay. I know that it is an impossibility. But what if you just stopped, you died right now, this minute, and it meant that a girl was not going to be sexually abused who is about to be sexually abused in the world? Like what is happening right now as we speak. Is that something you'd be willing to do? Not only that, would you be willing to take that sexual abuse on yourself? Because it's like, dude, yeah, I'll die. I get to go to heaven and the girl doesn't get raped? That's a no-brainer. But what if you actually continued living and took on that suffering? I know these are hypothetical questions, but I just wanted to challenge you because I don't think that many people have thought about what they would really be willing to die for because they're not really truly living for something. One of my favorite authors, Shane Claiborne, he says, I want to be challenged to the courageous. And if we aren't ready to die, then we haven't truly lived. And I know that if something is worth dying for, then it is also worth living for. And Jesus asks us to take up our cross and follow him. He asks us to die. But I also know that Jesus never asks us for something when he's not fully has the intention to give us something better. Because he asked the woman at the well for natural water, but he wanted to give her this abundant stream and eternal life that was flowing out of her. And so there's this crazy thing that happens in Philippians 3:10. Paul's talking about, I want to know Christ and experience the mighty power that raised him from the dead. I want to suffer with him, sharing in him, so that one way or another I will experience the resurrection from the dead. So what is it that you would be willing to die for? And maybe that will help you understand what it is that you will actually begin living for. Because I never want these banquets just to be about Win the Saints, but about reclaiming our hearts to the heart of Jesus. And so, again, those are just hypothetical questions, and you don't have to leave here wondering if imminent death is going to hit you. But there is one question at hand, and it is, how much would you be willing to donate to see not just one girl brought out of sexual abuse, but 12 to enter into this home? You have to wait 10 seconds. I just want to say one or two things. Of course. Again, just our measure of success is not based on a number. It's just based on the presence of Jesus being here and you feeling that presence and your heart being tied to his heart. And I just did want to leave you with one thought, and that is this, it doesn't end here. It doesn't end tonight. You guys, it'd be awesome if you guys continue to partner with Win the Saints, but ultimately this is a journey that Jesus has each of us on as individuals. Just understanding his heart and understanding what it is that you as an individual have been created for. Like what the purpose that he has in mind for your life is. And you can only find that out from him. And he's given you specific gifts and specific passions, and he's given you the ability to have your heart broken for specific things for a reason. Because it's a reflection of his heart, and we all have a specific reflection of his heart. And so I just want to challenge you with this one kind of quote from this song by Jimmy Needham. He says, take a break from all the plans that you have made and sit at home alone and wait for God to whisper. Beg him, please, to open up his mouth and speak and pray for real upon your knees until they blister. And shine a light on every corner of your life until the pride and lust and lies are in the open. And read the word and put to test the things you've heard until your heart and soul are stirred and rocked and broken. So ask Jesus to show you what his purpose is for you. And ask yourself what you would be willing to die for, because that is a cause that is worthy to live for. Okay, you ready? Someone tonight gave us $100 grand. A candy bar. No, I'm just kidding. A candy bar. That is the $100 grand candy bar. So thank you to whoever did that. It was TJ's idea. Okay, the total tonight is, drum roll, $61,629.
Jesus, I thank you so much for who you are. I thank you that you are the creator of the universe and you humble yourself to the point of death in order to redeem us from the redemption, or from the rebellion that we did against you. And I thank you that you pursued us in that. I thank you that you share your heart with us and you come alive in us, and we get to bring the kingdom of heaven to earth, and it is at hand. And it's not a matter of us doing it in our own strength, but just submitting and humbling ourselves before you and asking you to come alive in us, and asking you to redeem us and rescue us and save us on a personal level. And once we are set free, I just thank you that there's no way that we can ever hold that in. But we go out into the world and shine the light and the redemption of the gospel. And so I just am so thankful for your presence tonight and how you lead this ministry. And I'm so grateful for the glory that you got. And we just exist to make manifest the glory of you that is within us. And I pray all these things in the name of Jesus. Amen.